Fallout. Fallout is a franchise centered around humanity's will to survive and adapt being put to the ultimate test after the entire world basically got trolled because both America and China were too eager to show off their 30 kill streak. But you probably know about it as that franchise that has and still continues to push the boundaries of how broken and unstable a game can be, and yet still encourage people to put hundreds and thousands of hours into them. Because a wise young man once said, "It just works." New Vegas is one such masterful entry in the franchise. Fallout New Vegas is something. That's the best description I can give it. It's a game that's literally held together by Fevicol and duct tape, because I swear you can't go 2 seconds without noticing some otherworldly paranormal shit. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Why am I talking about a game that's already been discussed to death? To that I would say, what are you gonna do about it? It's not like we're getting a new Fallout game for at least another decade. Might as well talk about New Vegas again. So, what is Fallout New Vegas? It's a post-apocalyptic first/third-person RPG set in the vast expanse of the Mojave Desert, which unfortunately also had to suffer the consequences of the trolling incident that took place between America and China. Fortunately, not everything was microwaved away, as both Hoover Dam and Las Vegas survived because of a man named Mr. House. After a while, the New Californian Republic, or the NCR, a new organization formed after the war, wanted to take over Hoover Dam. But unfortunately, they weren't the only ones eyeing the dam, as a bunch of Roman cosplayers wearing literal football gear led by a guy named Caesar or Caesar, whatever, also want to take over the dam, and tensions are currently rising between the two factions, which could lead to a large-scale war any minute. But what are you in all of this? Well, you play as a courier who was tasked with delivering a package to the New Vegas Strip. But unfortunately, on your way, you get jumped by Chandler Bing and get shot in the head at point blank range and get buried alive, but still somehow survive. Either Chandler had literal stormtrooper aim, or this is all a glorified reference to Fallout 1 and 2's combat system. I don't fucking know. Regardless, you get revived by Doc Mitchell, who treats your wounds. Now, since this is an RPG, you know what that means. It has a character creator letting you create the most nightmarish eldritch abomination your mind can conjure. Once you're done being Dr. Frankenstein, you get to choose how to build your character out of 7 core stats, aptly acronymed as Special. You get to put upwards of 10 maximum points to each stat, and the amount of points you get to put are limited, so you have to think before building your character. If you put less points in strength, you'll be playing as the equivalent of Henry Stickmin, where a strong gush of wind is all it would take to completely obliterate your entire existence. Alternatively, if you don't put enough points in intelligence, your character progression is slowed down to a crawl because the amount of skill points you receive when leveling up is tied to your intelligence. Apart from that, it also unlocks some unique dialogue choices during NPC encounters. It's not as over-exaggerated as in Fallout 1 and 2, where low intelligence can literally turn you into a caveman. But there's a lot of comical lines of idiotic dialogue that are hilarious and well written.
Wow. I've got to admit, you have completely defied my first impression of you. Eye lasers. I'll be sure and look out for that next time. Any other juicy bits of intel?
I will say, however, that charisma is completely and utterly fucking useless. The only noticeable thing it does is increase your companion's damage output, but you need to be at least close to level 10 for that damage increase to actually be decent. Besides, why on earth would you need damage boost for your companions anyway, when you can just, I don't know, give them a nuke launcher and turn any battle zone into fucking Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Regardless, once you're done assigning your basic stats, you get to increase some of your skills and add some traits by a weirdly elaborate therapeutic session. Traits add some kind of advantage and some disadvantage to balance things out, and you only get to pick 2, so depending on your playthrough, you should choose wisely. After you're done building your character, the main quest begins. Track down the men who shot you. Basically, the game has now literally become Hunt Down the Bing. With that, you're thrown out into the wasteland. Surviving the Mojave Wasteland can be a tricky job, as you learn that it's not very different from the alleys of modern-day New York, littered with crackheads who wouldn't spare a moment trying to rob you. If your luck is somehow even worse, then you might have the chance of running into something worse, wildlife, ones that even the strongest Australian wouldn't dare touching with a 10-foot-long pole. There's quite a lot of variety in the amount of nightmarish abominations to lower your chances of survival. There's geckos, coyotes, giant ants, red scorpions, death claws, and by far the scariest of all, cazadors. Do not engage cazadors at lower levels. The moment you see some oversized wings flapping in the distance, immediately turn around and run in the opposite direction and hope to God that you don't get spotted. Cause I swear, getting caught between a group of cazadors is the literal embodiment of that one specific meme. Now, in order to increase your chances of survivability in these hostile lands, you need weapons, armor, healing items, drugs, but most important of all, money. There are multiple ways of earning money, doing side quests, scavenging, gambling, playing caravan if you actually learn how to fucking play it. I read the rules for about half an hour and I still couldn't figure it out. Anyway, if you hate the idea of working a 7x5, then there's always the choice of borrowing things. Regardless, once you gain enough money, you need to spend it, either by buying good guns or armor. Armor is pretty self-explanatory, although multiple armor pieces do provide additional stats that might aid certain character builds. The first stretch of the game specifically tasks you with traveling across a major portion of the Mojave and witness how things are going.
The Kaiser has marked you for death.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
It helps build the world as you get to see all the different settlements and gang members that have developed around the place, like the Powder Gangers, Jackals, Great Khans. However, the one that particularly has more importance is the rivalry between the NCR and Kaiser's Legion, or Caesar's Legion, whatever. You also get more in-depth insight into both factions, with the Legion clearly having no regards for moral ethics and randomly attacking various settlements and caravans just to cut off the NCR's supply lines. All while the NCR is already struggling to hold all ends, because they're spread too thin with not many troops to guard caravans or flanking positions. Because the general leading the NCR army is the equivalent of a fucking Discord mod being put in charge of an army. His entire plan to fight the war is to station all of his troops at Hoover Dam and their main base at Camp McCarran, while leaving every other location at the hands of literal skeleton crews. Apart from building up the world, this section of the game also introduces you to most of the companions you can recruit throughout the game. Companions received a massive upgrade in New Vegas compared to the previous entries. Fallout 3 had some good companions, but there was still room for improvement. In New Vegas, all of your companions feel like fully fledged characters with their own distinct and unique personalities. They act and feel like actual human beings while talking about their backstories instead of feeling like robotic exposition devices. My favorite partner in crime has to be Cass. Just your regular alcoholic cowgirl with a short temper. Perfect for your rampage across the Mojave. Just equip her with a ghost rifle and she'll obliterate enemies before even their own dialogues can comprehend that they're dead.
Don't need this right now. I'm gonna blow you to pieces.
Side quests are yet another major aspect of Fallout New Vegas, and since the first act of the game is pretty open-ended, with the main story being rather eased in, you get tons of opportunities to bump into these side quests while exploring. A lot of these side quests actually have consequences and might eventually help you on your main quest. If not, then they simply help you unlock a shit ton of good gear and XP early game. And needless to say, it's recommended that you level up as much as you can when the game is literally telling you to go out, explore and immerse yourself into the world. There's a reason why the main quest requires you to run halfway across the map. Leveling up also allows you to put skill points into different skills to build your character in a specific way. There's multiple ways to build your character. If you're a true American patriot and like to uphold your Second Amendment rights, then put more points into guns. If you like the average London lifestyle, then put more points into melee and unarmed. Or, if you like role-playing as your average spy main in TF2, put more points into sneak. Go behind enemy lines or take them out using sneak critical attacks because staying hidden gives you guaranteed critical hits. I will say, however, regardless of your combat build, make sure you always put a lot of points into speech, because it's overpowered as hell. Having a high speech skill is the literal equivalent of having that Michael Jackson meme as a skill. You can quite literally convince characters to do complete 180s on their ideologies.
You mean murder him? That's not our way, even if Cobb is scum. He can bluster and threaten all he wants.
A few inches later.
So you're planning on taking on Joe Cobb's gang. It's a big risk. I was planning on sitting this one out, but for some reason, I can't help but like you. I'm with you. Let me have a word with a few other folks, and I'll see if I can't round up some more members for this militia you're creating.
Hell, you can completely skip the final boss fight entirely by convincing the dude to leave with a high enough speed skill. One thing you're offered while leveling up are perks. You get to choose a perk every 2 levels, and they provide some advantages and some stat boosts. For example, you can choose to play as a gay character using the Confirmed Bachelor perk, which somehow allows you to do 10% extra damage against enemies of the same gender as you. Alternately, being straight allows you to do 10% extra damage against enemies of the opposite gender as yours. If you're having trouble choosing between your sexual fantasies and gameplay advantages, don't worry. Just pick both after leveling up a second time. Why choose one when you can have everything, as Cass puts it?
Sometimes I get so drunk, I don't care who I share a bed with, so...
Truly, this game has some deep philosophical teachings behind it. Although I swear the devs had some personal vendetta against us, picking the Lady Killer perk usually allows you to engage in some provocative conversations. With Cass, however, you get a specific double Lady Killer speech check, and you still get rejected in the most brutal way possible.
Don't take that as anything more than my words. I bet you're a real sweetheart the way you leave that trail of broken hearts behind you. I know your look. You probably say all the right things. So we're clear. Nothing's gonna happen between us. You'd best respect that.
Anyway, talking about side quests and leveling up, it also helps that most of the side quests are really good and well written. They're well designed, provide tons of different ways to handle them. If not, then they simply provide tons of additional story details and interesting scenarios that are genuinely fun to see conclude. One side quest involves finding a literal sex bot for some customers at the Atomic Wrangler casino who have a robot fetish. Or at least that's what the owner says.
You did? Ha, damn! I've been looking for one of those for years. For my customers, I mean, I'm not into that kind of shit.
Ignoring the weirdness of the quest itself, you have the option to test the robot out yourself. It literally has no advantage whatsoever, but it's doable. It's weird and wacky stuff like this that make the side quests so fun. Even your own companions have their own personal side quests, which provides them with permanent upgrades or stat boosts. Even you can receive some advantages from them. For example, doing arcade side quest will reward you with 2 sets of Enclave power armor and some assistance from a bunch of Enclave remnants in the final battle. Regardless, once you reach Boulder City, the story picks up once again as you encounter a bunch of NCR troops trying to thaw out some Great Khan members who've apparently taken some NCR members hostage. And who would those Great Khans be than the 2 people who were with Chandler Bing when he shot you? They tell you that Bing betrayed them as well because he didn't want to pay them, and that he's currently in New Vegas. Heading down to Vegas, there's multiple ways to confront Bing. You can either go the traditional method of blowing his guts out in front of everyone, or following him to his suite to figure out things peacefully only to get betrayed. Or you can play as a woman and seduce him to have sex with you. Regardless, once you deal with Chandler, things start amping up. The 4 main factions you encounter throughout the game ask you to join either of them. Also, any bad reputation you've gained with either the NCR or the Legion immediately gets forgiven. Meaning you can literally nuke the Legion's entire home front along the east as a part of a DLC and still get forgiven by Kaiser after you deal with Benny. Talking about factions, you've got 4 choices, including the aforementioned NCR and Kaiser's Legion. Apart from that, there's Mr. House and Yes Man. New Vegas is particularly well known for its nuanced depiction of all the factions. There's no clear-cut good or bad side. Well, apart from the Legion, that is. They're literally a bunch of Roman cosplayers who think all weak people should be enslaved or killed, whose leader has the most basic understanding of Roman history, who himself is the literal living embodiment of hypocrisy. Moving on, all the other factions have tons of nuance to them. In a way, they represent major forms of governance we have in the real world. The NCR represents democracy, Mr. House is about autocracy, and Yes Man is about independence. There's no clear-cut good or bad choice as each faction offers their own sets of advantages and flaws. I can delve a lot deeper into all these factions, but honestly, I don't have the resources to make an 8-hour-long video essay, so yeah, moving on. So, what about the gameplay? As previously mentioned, there's different ways you can build your character which offer multiple gameplay variations. If you're going with the patriotic American route, you have a wide selection of firearms to let you practice your Second Amendment rights with pride. You've got everything ranging from 9mm automatic pistols to revolvers to SMGs, shotguns, bolt action rifles, automatic rifles, there's quite a lot. Apart from guns, you've also got energy weapons. Pro tip, complete the Dead Money DLC, best DLC by the way. Anyway, complete it and you'll be rewarded with the Hollow Rifle, which is without a doubt the best energy weapon in the entire game. I'm not joking. If you couple it with max charge rounds, it becomes so overpowered that it can literally kill the final boss of the game in like 5 or 6 shots. Now yes, I do need to mention the fact that the actual shooting without VATS is a bit janky and awkward, but once you get used to it, it's pretty enjoyable. The variety of different weapons and builds to deal with the enemies makes up for the actual shooting being a bit stiff. Now, if you're more of an Englishman, completely disgusted by the American way, you can go for melee builds. There's 2 types of non-gun builds, unarmed and armed. You've got a wide array of weapons to choose from. Power fists, machetes, the good old-fashioned knives, super sledges, etc. I don't have much experience with melee builds because I prefer the American way myself, but the few times I have used it, it's quite fun. Albeit a bit janky, just like the shooting, but again, once you get used to it, it's pretty fun. And how can we talk about New Vegas without talking about the music? The selection of licensed tracks are simply amazing and complement the atmosphere of the game extremely well. New Vegas simply wouldn't be the same with Blue Moon and Something's Got a Gift playing in the background. Neither would the rest of the Mojave be without Heartaches by the Number or It's a Sin playing on the radio. Apart from licensed tracks and the main theme, there's also ambient tracks that play depending on where you currently are. There's also dynamic audio that changes depending on whether you're in combat or not. And even that changes depending on what location you're in. And all of them are bangers as well. Fallout New Vegas is a phenomenal game, and while it has its flaws, its positives far outweigh the negatives. And well, that's all I have to say about this amazing game. Like and subscribe, and